Ukraine waited for the assault to tighten, then triggered the mine zone in under 9 seconds.
At 4:11 a.m., deep inside Luhansk Oblast, the still air cracked with thunder. 3 battalions of North Korean armor equipped with 96 tons, 6.2 tanks at $1.5 million each, 24 BM-21 Grad rocket trucks at $850,000 apiece, and over 40 UAV scouts at $45,000. Each launched a sudden assault on Ukraine's munitions depot. It wasn't a skirmish. It was a full-scale strike aimed at crippling HIMARS reload hubs, drone supply lines, and artillery coordination deep in eastern Ukraine. In this cold weather, are you doing okay health-wise? Comment yes or no so we can send positive energy to each other. Following the shock assault at 4:11 a.m., North Korean forces advanced in a crescent formation, spreading across nearly 2 miles of woodland and dirt roads. Their vanguard consisted of over 70 tons, 6.2 tanks, pushing through the central corridor, while modified Shin-Gung Manpad's team secured the outer flanks. Behind them, armored trucks carrying combat engineers rolled toward the southern berms, intent on breaching the depot's layered earthworks and steel gates. But Ukraine had already adapted. High above, recon drones, each no larger than a dining table but fitted with infrared optics and signal sniffers, picked up the movement within 6 minutes of the first tank engine rumble. Within moments, Patriot PAC-3 batteries were repositioned into a semi-arc, covering 110 degrees of sky, preparing for inbound missiles or drone swarms. Meanwhile, 2 Su-27 flankers, cruising at 22,000 feet, began releasing chaff corridors, dense clouds of metallic strips designed to scatter radar locks and jam enemy missile tracking. On the ground, motorbike infantry teams armed with RPG 26 seconds and AT-4 variants weaved through narrow forest paths. Traveling up to 60 miles per hour, they executed a high-speed flank, intercepting the sappers just 400 yards from the southern wall. The North Koreans expected a clean breach. Instead, they met fast-moving counterfire and a defense that had already evolved. If you watched our last video where Ukrainian drones turned a Russian oil depot into a fireball, what came next hit even harder. At 6:02 a.m., the battlefield tilted again, this time from the north. In a coordinated push, 40 North Korean tanks, including T-55 seconds valued at $800,000 each and T-62 seconds worth $1.5 million, roared through the woodland corridor toward the Luhansk depot. Behind them, 122mm howitzers positioned 4 miles to the rear unleashed suppressive fire, shelling Ukrainian tree lines every 15 seconds to clear a path for the armor wave. Above the formation, rotor-driven jamming drones, each priced at $45,000, hovered low and steady, pulsing interference across radio and targeting frequencies in an attempt to blind Ukrainian fire control systems. But Ukraine was waiting. From 2 concealed berms, T-72 tanks on the left and T-80 seconds on the right emerged. Each vehicle, worth between $2 and $3 million, opened fire at under 1,200 yards, launching 125mm Sabat rounds with deadly precision. The first wave of shells struck the North Korean lead units, igniting fuel tanks and flipping turrets clean off their hulls. As the enemy tried to regroup, Robotic Mine Layer's compact tracked units designed for rapid deployment rolled out from camouflaged positions and deployed wide arcs of TM-62 anti-tank mines. Within seconds, 2 enemy tanks veered into the field and were blown apart, triggering panic and chaos across the line. From the western ridge, a battery of 152mm Bodana self-propelled guns, each round costing $35,000, opened up. Their fire cut through the broken formation, striking refueling vehicles and rearguard support. One direct hit sent a turret airborne over the treetops, crashing down into flames. A final blow came when Ukrainian infantry with RPG-26 launchers at $2,000 each engaged the stragglers from forest cover, hitting exposed engine decks and ammunition racks. In less than 15 minutes, the northern assault collapsed. What was intended to be a steel wedge had turned into a burning corridor of scrap, fire, and failure. As the northern armored thrust collapsed in flames, North Korea escalated with a new tactic: vertical disruption. At 7:21 a.m., a salvo of short-range KN-02 ballistic missiles, each valued at over $2 million, streaked through the skies. Their intended targets: Ukraine's radar hubs and mobile artillery commands near the Luhansk munitions depot. Within moments, Patriot PAC-3 systems, each interceptor costing around $4 million, locked on. From hardened positions just west of the depot, Ukrainian crews launched a wave of missiles. 4 KN-2 seconds were intercepted mid-flight, detonating in brilliant flashes above the tree line. But 2 broke through, diving erratically as Kozak, 2 M electronic warfare vehicles worth $350,000 each, surged forward and jammed their guidance systems. One missile veered off and exploded harmlessly in open terrain. The other buried itself in soft ground, failing to detonate. But Ukraine didn't stop there. From the Western Valley, 3 Mi-24 Hind gunships rose over the ridgeline. Each helicopter, $18 million apiece, swept forward at low altitude, unleashing 80mm unguided rockets and heavy machine gun fire into a North Korean resupply convoy moving along a dirt trail. A fuel truck ignited instantly, engulfing 2 armored cars behind it in fire. High above, Punisher and Beaver suicide drones, each built for under $50,000, circled silently. In coordinated strikes, they dove into 122mm artillery batteries at the rear, their warheads erupting on impact. A drone smashed clean through a gun shield before detonating inside the crew compartment. No survivors. In the skies, the war grew noisier. Jammer met jammer. Radar challenged radar. Ukrainian drones began to lose uplink as North Korean EW assets responded with their own static bursts. But Ukraine adapted fast. Operators switched to line-of-sight fallback relays, while backup drones maintained targeting visual through infrared feed. The airspace became a battlefield not just of weapons, but of frequencies, deception, and digital agility. And Ukraine still held the edge. The sky above Luhansk was no longer just contested, it was wired, jammed, and burning. Comment 1 if electronic warfare is the new front line. 2 if drone strikes dominate. 3 if this war is entering a new dimension. As the sun dipped below the horizon at 7:44 p.m., the skies over Luhansk finally fell silent, but only for a moment. The electronic chaos of the afternoon had faded into low-band hums and scanning pulses. But North Korea was far from done. Using the cover of dusk, 2 platoons of special forces, roughly 60 elite operators, slipped through a dense tree line less than 900 feet from the southern edge of the munitions depot. Equipped with miniature recon UAVs, handheld radar scopes, and IR camouflage gear, they advanced in tight diamond formations, aiming to breach the perimeter under darkness and confusion. But Ukraine had anticipated the shift in tempo. Motorbike troops, already rotating in zigzag patrol circuits, pivoted to intercept. Their helmets were synced to thermal scopes and real-time AI-based movement recognition software, allowing them to distinguish human silhouettes from animal movement even in total darkness. Riding at 35 to 45 miles per hour, they maneuvered through narrow forest paths, flanking each infiltration team with uncanny speed and precision. At the same time, Ukraine's autonomous minefield grid was activated. Compact recon mine-laying robots deployed earlier in the day had been silently mapping foot traffic and now triggered their preset defense logic. Dozens of TM-62 mines, armed with proximity sensors, detonated in cascading arcs around the depot's southern fence, forming a lethal perimeter ring. Caught between patrolling troops and an exploding mine net, the North Korean Special Forces had no clean exit. Return fire was sporadic and ineffective. Each gun muzzle flash only revealed new targets for Ukrainian marksmen watching from elevated blinds. Within 12 minutes, the entire infiltration attempt had collapsed. Bodies were dragged back into the tree line. Gear was abandoned. The depot remained untouched, and the message was clear. Even under the cloak of night, this battlefield belonged to Ukraine, watched, mapped, and defended by machines, men, and algorithms working as one. After the failed night infiltration, it became clear that North Korea's offensive had shifted from momentum to desperation. Their armored thrusts had been halted, special forces repelled, and aerial dominance denied. But they still had one lifeline left: a logistics corridor running northeast of the Luhansk depot, snaking back toward rear staging zones 25-30 miles out. Supplies, reinforcements, command nodes all flowed through this artery. Ukraine decided to sever it. Just before 10 p.m., 2 HIMARS batteries and a trio of M270 MLRS launchers, pre-positioned west of Donetsk, received coordinated fire missions. Target data came from Punisher drones and signals intelligence teams that had geolocated enemy relay stations. Over the next 6 minutes, more than 42 guided rockets lit up the night sky, arching east in tight salvos. The impacts were surgical. Within the first barrage, 4 mobile radar trailers, each parked behind ridgelines and camouflaged with netting, were obliterated. Flames erupted as their transmitters and power units were torn apart. Moments later, 2 ammunition trucks traveling in convoy along a dirt path were struck mid-turn, their fuel tanks igniting a 300-foot-wide fireball that lit the forest floor like daylight. The final volley struck a mobile field command post, collapsing its tent, killing its senior staff, and silencing its encrypted radio net within seconds. But the fire didn't stop there. From 20 miles southwest, Ukraine's 155mm artillery units began hammering the same corridor in overlapping waves. Each gun crew had rehearsed fire mission timing with drone spotters flying 1,500 feet overhead. The result? A dead zone nearly 2 miles long, where anything on wheels, tank, truck, or APC was either burning or immobilized. North Korea's supply chain fractured in real time. No new reinforcements made it through. Resupply attempts stalled at the tree line. Emergency withdrawal units found themselves under indirect fire before reaching their own forward lines. The once coordinated push had now collapsed into a logistical graveyard, where even recovery teams dared not enter. Ukraine didn't just stop the assault, they amputated its spine. By 3:23 a.m., less than 6 hours after the last HIMARS volley severed the North Korean supply artery, Ukraine launched its most decisive move, yet a coordinated counteroffensive aimed directly at the eastern flank of the Luhansk munitions depot, where scattered North Korean forces still held entrenched ground. Leading the charge were 8 T-80 main battle tanks, advancing in staggered formation behind a line of mine-clearing robots that crawled forward with precision, detonating tripwires and clearing paths through previously contested dirt trails. Just ahead of them, motorbike infantry units darted between tree cover, armed with RPGs and short-range comms jammers, maneuvering to outflank and disrupt bunker lines from unexpected angles. Above, a pair of Mi-24 gunships flew low and fast, raining down S-8 rockets and suppressing machine gun fire on any bunker that showed resistance. Behind this trio of movement tank, bike, and rotor, the sky buzzed with loitering kamikaze drones, each locked onto pre-designated heat signatures and GPS coordinates. Within 47 minutes, every fortified position held by North Korean troops had been either neutralized or abandoned. Dozens of enemy vehicles, including APCs and utility trucks, were left burning or flipped over. But Ukraine didn't just rout the enemy, they contained the retreat. As North Korean units attempted to flee north through the forest, Ukrainian medics were already moving in, providing field aid to wounded adversaries. It wasn't just a tactical victory, it was a reclaiming of ground and moral clarity. The depot was once again under full Ukrainian control. By dawn, the operation to retake and hold the Luhansk munitions depot was complete. Over 80 enemy vehicles lay destroyed across a 2-mile radius, many still smoldering. 5 mobile radar stations were eliminated, and every North Korean Special Forces unit involved in the infiltration was either neutralized or captured. Strategically, North Korea lost its primary foothold in eastern Luhansk, forcing a shift from aggressive armored thrusts to more covert, guerrilla-style tactics. More importantly, Ukraine solidified its logistics corridor, preserving a long-range ammunition hub vital to sustaining precision drone and HIMARS operations. But one question now lingers. Will Pyongyang escalate with long-range missile strikes or shift to multi-domain asymmetry? The lesson was clear. Advanced tech must be matched by mobility and restraint. Even amid flames and collapse, Ukrainian troops carried wounded POWs on stretchers, wrapping them in blankets as medics worked beneath the rising smoke. And the final image etched in memory. A Mi-24 gunship hovering above the depot, while below, medics knelt in ash and mud victors with humanity still intact.